really the essence of a good, trustworthy brand is the message that you're delivering on a consistent basis. It is what you want to say to the world about yourself and about your art. So, who you are as an artist, why you paint, what type of art you do, why you do it. And in terms of a really good brand, especially for galleries to be interested in, they're going to be looking for a consistent signature style. A gallery doesn't want somebody who is not predictable in what they're painting, because collectors love that predictability. They love that there's consistency there and that your style is recognizable. Hi, I'm Ciara Gilmore, and welcome to my podcast, Light Between the Layers. And today we're going to dive into all things art business related. And in this episode, we're going to be diving into branding.
Hi, I'm Daniel. I'm co-producing with Esther. It's a pleasure to be on the podcast with you
It's
today,
lovely to have you.
Ciara. So today's podcast is about branding.
Yeah.
And first topic to talk about is what makes an artist's brand feel trustworthy and desirable?
Oh, good question. I mean, first of all, I want to start off with saying that a lot of artists don't seem to think that they need a brand. Um, and I didn't think about branding for years. It kind of just evolved and happened. And then I realized, well, I have created a brand here, but I think it's really good to talk and just say, you do need to have a brand. You're a business like any other business, and every business needs to have a brand. And what the brand does is it highlights and shows off everything that you do in a very consistent way. But we'll talk about branding in a general sense. Every good brand needs a consistent message. So we're not just talking about brand colors, although brand colors and consistency of colors are really important. And, taking those key colors out of your art will be something. I mean, my brand colors are blue and gold because there's lots of blue and gold in my art. So it made sense that those are the colors. Also, it's good to have a logo, but, a logo is not a brand in itself. People think that if you just have a logo on your web page, that's enough. Really, the essence of a good, trustworthy brand is the message that you're delivering on a consistent basis. It is what you want to say to the world about yourself and about your art. So, who you are as an artist, why you paint, what type of art you do, why you do it. And in terms of a really good brand, especially for galleries to be interested in, they're going to be looking for a consistent signature style. A gallery doesn't want somebody who is not predictable in what they're painting, because collectors love that predictability. They love that there's consistency there and that your style is recognizable. So that's a given. If you're looking down that direction, you want to get into galleries. But you don't need galleries to sell your art. You can sell your art yourself, but you still need a good brand, and you still need something that people will come across and they will remember. So your brand needs to be memorable. You don't want it to blend in. You want it to be you know, a standout brand. And there's some artists that I know who do branding so well. And I teach branding, but I wouldn't say I'm an expert, nor would I even say that my branding is the best. There's a lot of work still to be done on my own. But some artists have this real natural ability to brand themselves absolutely perfectly. I'm thinking of one artist in particular, and she paints these very kind of pop arty animals covered with graffiti and splashes of, you know, spray paint and messy kind of things. But there's this beautiful regal animal in the background, like a tiger or a flamingo, and it's just out there. It's so kind of like just eye-catching and magnetizing. Like you just go, my gosh, what's this girl all about? Then you go into her website, you go into her social media, you go into anything about her and the brand is everywhere. It's the same brand, it's the same message, the same story, the same colors, the same energy. It's about energy, and her energy literally lifts off, the website and the page, because her personality is kind of infused into the art, infused into the brand. And she shows up in these wild pink outfits. She's just almost like a human copy of her paintings, and it works so well. And, I think that if you can get that right, you're going to be unforgettable. And that's the thing. There's a lot of artists out there. I mean, once lockdown happened, everybody started to paint. Everybody started an art business. And a lot of people who started maybe have stopped at this stage. But the people who are still at it, you want to stand out. You don't want to kind of just like blend into the background. And that can be a little bit intimidating for artists, because I would say that some or most of us can be quite, as artists, we can be very self-reflective, and like we don't really want to show our personality, our inner artist. We want to just paint quietly and sell our work quietly and get on with our life. But this is a big part, especially in today's market. I mean, it's so much different selling art now than it was 20, 30 years ago. Back then, you had to rely on a gallery system, you had to rely on exhibitions. But now we are our own curator, we are our own exhibition manager and gallerist. We are the people in charge of our art. So we have to almost be the agent for ourselves. And with that, brand is a must. So I think that probably answered that
Yeah.
question.
Yeah, no, that's like a really interesting kind of perspective.
Yeah,
How do you make that as authentic
yeah,
as possible,
yeah,
so people actually trust you?
yeah. That's a
Yeah.
brilliant question, because it's the authenticity that seeps out of your brand. So if you're doing something that's fake, if you're pretending to be somebody you're not, people see through that. People see through that. And, for me, my brand is kind of, I suppose it's a kind of a gentle brand. It's not a screaming and shouting and look at me, I'm over here kind of brand. It is soft and energetically kind of spiritual and ethereal and all of those things. But with the gold, I love that the gold represents the luxury, because I don't just see my art as a piece of channeled work in paint. I also see it as high luxury. I do big statement pieces that really make a room change in its energy. And I wanted that to come through in my brand. And I think using that gold in if you see any of my ads, there's always gold glitter everywhere. There's gold stripes in all of even down to the information I provide for my students in the courses, like the PDFs I create, gold sparkles everywhere. There has to be gold. And gold for me represents abundance too. So it's pulling that into my everyday life as well. So yeah, I just be me. I just do what I love, and it's kind of come out in the way that I brand. Sometimes I can be a little inconsistent, and, big deal if you're not consistent absolutely 100% of the time. That's all right. Nobody's standing over you, telling you off. But I think that if you get it, if you understand yourself, understand why you paint, understand what your paintings can do for other people. Like, for example, say you're a seascape artist and you just are painting seascapes all the time, maybe really, really rough seas, and maybe your target audience is people who sail or people who just love being out in the ocean. Your branding should reflect that turmoil in the sea, that wildness, the roughness, So, like, what fonts are you using? You're not going to use a very delicate, Pride and Prejudice font for that. You're going to want something with a statement. So you have to think about all of the things that you are using to reflect what you do. And that's really your brand. But you have to stay consistent on the information, on the story, on the message, all the way through. So what are you saying on your website should be the same thing you're saying on your social media, the same thing that you're putting in your gift vouchers, the marketing material you use should be all consistent in color. And that's what makes it memorable. And also that's what makes it high value. And that's what makes it premium. And people want that when they're purchasing a piece of original art. If you want to get those sales that are in the four figures rather than the three figures, you want to have branding that matches that. You don't want to have, somebody once said to me, champagne in a plastic cup. It has to match what your vibe is and what you're trying to create with your art, even before they see the art. If you've got like a logo or a script or a font you always use, and I made the mistake of using multiple fonts, and artists do this all the time because, especially because we're creative, we love fonts and we love trying different fonts, and it's so exciting. But actually, just pick two or three and stick to them, so that then when you have even just a piece of writing or something with your colors and your font on it, even without your logo, that I think that's Ciara Gilmore, even before they get to the art, so it's the consistency and exposing it in every way. So even if you're doing an exhibition in a gallery or somewhere else, your business cards should be the same that you're putting out, the fonts, everything needs to be the same. So, but the most important thing is your core story, is the message that you're telling. So you don't want to be saying, oh, I'm Ciara and I paint high vibe, colorful abstracts with balloons. One day, and then the next day, oh, hi, I'm Ciara and I paint, very serene landscapes with birds. So, it has to be a similar thing. You can't jump around over the place because people get confused. Whenever I started painting, when I was kind of in that middle stage, going from my craft to more painting all the time, I started painting lots of things. So I painted angels, I painted animals, and I painted landscapes and seascapes and houses as well. I did a bit of houses and I did do a couple of portraits as well, but there was lots and lots of different things. And it just was a jumbled mess. It was like, who is this artist? She's a jack of all trades and a master of none. And I soon realized that when people look at that, they on my website, because it was on my website, and they would just go, what's going on here? This is too confusing. I want something that is recognizable, and something that I'd be proud to say this is a Ciara Gilmore. So very soon after that, I was looking to kind of hone my skills, find my niche, and focus on one thing and do it really well, rather than doing multiple things not so well and confusing people. Because with all those different styles, I had to look for 10 different audiences: an audience who likes wet felting, an audience who likes animals, an audience who likes sea, an audience who likes landscapes. But now I just have to look for an audience who loves ethereal abstracts.
And
You
they're
know,
beautiful as well.
thank you.
Yeah. You know, I think it's niche can be such a scary word
Yeah,
to artists, especially because they go,
yeah,
"Oh no, if I niche down, I'm really pigeonholing
yeah,
myself."
yeah,
But it's strange because you're already wearing so many hats.
yeah,
So you're wearing your branding hat, you're wearing your
yes,
your marketing hat, you're
yeah,
wearing all these different hats that then have to tie back to that
yeah.
niche. So you can only do so much.
You can only do so much. Yeah. So you're going to have to do all of that anyway. It's so much easier when you've got one style, having to do it for all the other things. It actually sends you into a spin. And at that point, and if you're doing that as an artist, you'll probably be very confused yourself, and you'll not know how to sell your art or where to find your audience. And this way of kind of refining and, focusing on one style of art will help you enormously to be able to sell. It's so much easier. So that's what I really do help artists with, both in my painting course about refining their signature style, and in their art business course, like finding their audience. And if you've got one style, you're just looking for one audience, generally.
Takes away the choice paradox as well of when you wake up and you go into your studio and you go,
Yes.
"What am I
What am
gonna
I going to
work
do
on today?
today? Yeah.
Am I gonna do wet
Well,
felting? Am I
yeah.
gonna do abstract? Am I
Yeah.
gonna do portraits?"
Yeah. what
Um,
paints or inks
yeah.
or watercolors, or, because not only do they do different themes or content, they have hundreds of different types of mediums to use. And that's one thing that I also stress, get really good at one medium, like acrylics. That's what I use. I don't start doing oils and ink pouring and splattering and all these different things I see on YouTube. I don't do that anymore. I used to. I used to get so sidetracked. I was like a magpie, looking for shiny things, and I would be off flying away to try something new. But now it's stick with what you know and just get better at it. Just get so, so good at it that you shock yourself, because people have said to me, Ciara, your style is constantly evolving. It's different this year than it was the last year and the year before that, even though it's still recognizable as mine. It's still evolving. It's being constantly refined and improved every time I go into the studio. So I know that artists worry that if you niche down, you'll lose this kind of like creative spark and it'll be so boring. Well, it's not boring. It's exciting.
And do you feel like that journey of figuring out your brand, and uh, kind of going through that, because it's not a quick process,
Yeah.
do you feel like that's made your art more collectible? People are more interested in it. People are
Yeah.
kind of following you more,
Yeah.
kind of religiously, saying, "This is a
Yes,
Ciara
super
Gilmore."
fans.
Yeah,
I have
super
a few
fans.
super fans. All right, yeah. And that's really nice. People who buy and buy and buy. It has evolved for me, and I wish I had the information back then that I'm teaching right now. Like I do actually have a course called Art Brand Mastery, which just focuses on branding for your business, and it's very, very reasonably priced. So if you need help with your branding, that is the course to get. But I didn't understand branding and I didn't see myself or my business as something that needed branding. I saw clothes and like handbags and perfumes and all those things. Their brand, I didn't really. I had these like glasses that were kind of, I don't know, they were blocking out all the things that I decided I didn't want to hear about, even though probably instinctively I knew I had to do something about it, but I didn't want to listen and I didn't want to hear. And I was quite stubborn about that as well, because I remember this artist one day saying to me, and I am forever thankful to this artist. She's a ceramicist and she knows who she is. She said to me, Ciara, I said, I've just launched my new website. And she said, well, there's a lot of different things on there, isn't there? And I said, yes, but I do a lot of different things. Because I thought if I can showcase how good I am at all these different things, then people think I'm a really good artist. And that was actually not the truth. But she says, I think what you need to do is kind of, you know, just focus on one thing. And that was probably about 4 years into the 8 years where I was not making a profit or not actually doing anything. And it was always in the back of my head, too many things on the website and you need to do one. I'm going, I'm not doing one. I'm not doing one. I'm doing everything. I love doing everything. And and then one day it just seemed to click. And it was I suppose, was lots of other things going on in my life that I was evolving into this different creative person, and it all clicked at the same time when I started doing the abstract. And then when I developed my style, it was almost like I developed my style not because I thought I have to. It just happened. And then it was going, oh, this is what works. This is what works. That's what she meant. That's it. It was like, it had to be like slammed into my face for me to understand it. For collectors, they need, if they're going to invest in your art, especially if you want to sell higher value art, I mean, they want your art to increase in value, and they want you to be a well-known, respected artist, some artist that's going somewhere. And once I developed my brand, my style, got into galleries, everything just changed. My prices increased. There was so much interest. I was getting commission after commission after commission. I couldn't keep up. And at one point in one of the galleries, there was not a waiting list, but there was people who were waiting for my next paintings to come through so that they could choose. They were like, when are they coming in? When are they coming in? So there was a lot of pressure on there. In order for somebody to invest that amount of money in art, they have to trust you. And any good brand has to vibrate with that trust, the energy of trust. They have to know that when they choose that item, it's high quality. It's going to last. The paint's not going to fall off. It's not going to, the canvas isn't going to suddenly sag. So you have to, in your brand as well, make sure that you are showing that professionalism as an artist. Um, that's really important because it's like any business, if you get what you pay for. So if you pay for, a vase in pound stretcher, it's that's what you're going to get, a pound kind of a vase. But your your brand, especially for art, it has to be high quality and it has to be something very special and precious.
Because I think what you've been really candid about is that it's a journey.
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
something that you just go, oh, this is exactly what I have to do. And
Yes.
tomorrow my art is going to
Is
be,
gonna be
I'm going to have this authority in this
Yeah,
space.
yeah, yeah. And artists are very impatient to get to that. What is my story? What is it that I'm showing through my art? And it is an evolution of that person and their art. It's them getting better and better the more and more they paint. Because people will say to me, "Well, how long will it take for me to get gallery worthy art?" And I'm going, "Well, how often do you paint?" And they go, "Well, once, twice a month." I go, "Well, then it'll take you this length of time if you're doing all the things, you're learning all the things. But if you're doing it every day or every other day, you're going to get there faster. You're going to, you definitely are. But we are an impatient bunch and we need things done right now. But what we have to do is sit back and enjoy the journey because when I look back at all the different stages, it was really exciting and really, really good in every stage, you know. Never once did I sit and go, even when I wasn't making any money, never did I once go, I'm not enjoying this.
Yeah.
I still enjoyed it. I still enjoyed it. It's just because you're creating stuff, it's in your soul,
So the
part of.
key to unlocking your authentic brand is
Yes.
enjoy the process.
Enjoy the process. Thank you for listening once again, and we'll see you in the next episode.